Hey everyone, I'm David Berkowitz, and welcome to another edition of AI Insiders by AI Marketers Guild, part of Marketecture Media, and the Marketecture Media angle is a little more relevant today than it is, even if Marketecture is always top of mind in our world, because we are just days after Marketecture's biggest ever event, Marketecture Live III, and I gotta say, yeah, full on. I'm biased. Yeah, I'm wearing the brand. The community is a part of Marketecture, but I haven't been to many events like that. I have a very short attention span when it comes to when it comes to any of these kinds of events. Fortunately, this event was basically panel free, so a lot of solo talks and fireside chats, and but the team behind it, Amelia Tran, Jesse Meyer, I mean, just everyone involved working at Marketecture just did did something special. And like I'd been on the planning calls for months, hadn't done actually too much of the planning myself, so I could take 0.001% credit for it. Just a phenomenal team effort there, and so I highly recommend trying to get to Marketecture events in person in the future, should you ever have a chance. Today, we're inviting one of our speakers from the event, Tom Riordan, who's been a longtime friend of Marketecture. I've even gotten to have this other kind of role with Tom, because Tom leads a lot of the AI curriculum for another phenomenal group, U of Digital. And I know I've mentioned them in the past, and we'll put links into their stuff, but they do some of the best training in the ad industry about the ad industry and related topics. And so they'll talk to brands, they'll talk to these ad tech companies themselves, and cover a lot of ground. And the curriculum, like I get to go and build on some things that they're doing. I've been like a guest lecturer a couple times, including last month, and just the thoughtfulness of the curriculum development is so strong, thanks to some of the folks like Tom, who also runs his own firm, WordPower. So, Tom, I am fortunate to have gotten to learn from you in many ways, especially over the past couple of years, and hear some of your thoughts on where AI played a role, didn't, should have, could have, would have, especially in some of the Marketecture live conversations. But Tom, if you want to introduce yourself a little bit better, we're very excited to have you here.
Sure. Thank you, David. Hey there, AI Marketers Guild crew. My name is Tom Riordan. I run a business called WordPower that helps businesses go from 0 to 1 on their AI journey. Although I'm increasingly finding some businesses are ready to go from 1 to 2 on their AI journey as well. Like David mentioned, I do a lot of work helping marketers understand AI, helping people understand kind of key concepts and the fundamentals. And then most excitingly for me is use cases. So one signature piece of our sessions is that we're always showing demos or doing live work sessions, inviting people to participate in exercises, kind of roll up their hands and get them, or roll up their sleeves and get their hands dirty. So my business has been around about 3 years. The first year we did a lot of consulting type work where we were just kind of helping businesses think about how to use this new Gen AI type stuff. And in my second year, it really became obvious to me that folks were being left behind at the kind of average org. You'd have leadership teams thinking really hard about how they need to use AI. Maybe you'd have a couple power users who are building out special projects, starting to see some return. But the majority of people, like 80% plus of people at a given organization, weren't really getting their hands dirty, weren't really feeling supported. In fact, a lot of them are reading articles about potential job displacement and reskilling concerns they need to be mindful of. And these individuals just haven't had resources. So kind of the mission of WordPower has been focused really the last year and a half on being the rising tide that lifts all boats at an organization, helping people feel like they're being brought along with the AI journey, being invested in, enabled, and supported as part of a broader AI transformation effort at a business.
Awesome. Well, yeah. I mean, that kind of training and clarity is so sorely needed, and also, I mean, it was exciting to see you bring up the AI Alliance that U of D is launching, and so could you just mention what that's about?
I'm probably not the best ambassador on that. We should get someone from UOD to
Yeah.
talk about that a little bit more. I did have the pleasure of crashing the AI Alliance dinner, which was some folks from ANA and some folks from Anthropologic, which is one of the sponsors. So it's about enablement. It's about kind of like bringing something to the industry. But yeah, your link there is probably going to be better than any elevator pitch.
Awesome. Well, had to at least give you a shot, given your close affiliation there, and it was some great news to hear live at Marketecture. So, I mean, what were some of the themes that you were picking up at during the event? What stood out to you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you couldn't walk around for 20 minutes without either hearing AI spoken about directly in one of the sessions or hearing it come up in the networking portion, which was really notable. I thought at Marketecture, like all the marketing, the networking breaks were very social. Folks were kind of not like trying to hold off and do phone calls. It was I met a lot of folks I'd never met before. I've heard similar experiences from others. And just one of the constant topics was, the realness of AI adoption within orgs. If businesses are starting to see return themselves, ROI, productivity enhancements, and then of course, like in terms of marketing products and the actual way that we're advertising. That's kind of the other piece too. So two pieces: internal AI transformation for marketing type organizations, and then how our campaigns are actually changing as a result of AI. In Aries' keynote, when he was kicking things off, he said something. What did he say about agents? He said, none of us are really using agents right now. None of the people in this room are really using agents right now. And I thought that set the tone in an interesting way. I think he was kind of challenging the hype around agents and saying, like, we hear all this talk about agents, but who's actually seeing return on their day to day? And he was kind of pushing the audience that there's a little bit of BS in terms of like how much we in marketing are actually using agents. And I thought that was interesting because I actually had I was talking to somebody else after at the event, and they said, "I can't believe he said that. I'm getting all this return from agents. Like, can you believe that he's dogging us and saying we're not using them enough?" And I think there's a lot of fogginess there to clear up. Like, what exactly are agents? What does it even mean to be using them? Did you use it once? Do you use it every day? What sort of level of return do you need to see to be like a productive agent user? And that came out like right at the beginning of the conference and already stirred the pot a little bit. So I think that's kind of maybe an interesting one to start on.
Well, yeah, and we should definitely dive into this, and so I'm just going to ask you yourself: are you actively using agents for anything you're doing?
So I am. I think I'm constantly using agents. Got to reorient myself though, because the AI chat experience is becoming more agent-like. So, like for example, for today's we have an AI accelerator for U of Digital this afternoon, and it's an agents session. So I'll be demoing agents to people and showing them agents that we use. And we are constantly using a new agentic tool in that, because we're just going to show people what's new. Today we're going to do Claude CoWork.
And
Anyone on the call use Claude CoWork?
played with it, but
It's like
yes,
Neil does.
lots. It's great.
Nice. So on one hand, you can do things in Claude CoWork that are just normal AI chat, and it looks and feels a lot like normal AI chat. But if you spend a minute with it, you realize there's a lot more firepower under the hood. And Claude CoWork is different than regular AI chat because it doesn't just do what you tell it to do. It comes up with a plan, and it deploys sub-agents, little AIs, to do things as part of executing that plan. And if it makes a mistake, it realizes it, and it might course correct. If it needs to use a tool or go get information, it's going to do that. If it needs to write and create a document for you and leave it on your computer, it's going to do that. And these are all things that traditional AI chat really doesn't do, right? So like the folks in Anthropic are definitely calling Claude CoWork agentic, but I bet there's many people who use it or have seen it and don't really understand the paradigm shift, like how that's different than traditional chat. So on that first point of like what even is agentic, I think there's definitely still a lot of gray area.
Yeah, because like one of the examples that I would bring up to folks is like deep research, right? And so like, do you define this as agentic, and how and like for a specific task, it meets a lot of the criteria, but it's also like typically like a one and done process. I mean, like the agents that I'm using most consistently right now is so I'm a big fan of Base 44 and I've got a bunch of properties I'm playing with this. Like I actually was just checking today to see it's like, wait, am I on the monthly or annual pricing? It's like, oh, I'm on the annual, but I just keep like going to the next plan up and I keep burning through more of their credits because I love it. Um, and and one of the things I have running on a couple of their properties are AI generated blog content that then feeds into the sitemap and yeah, that can then go and feed into Google Search Console and but it's designed heavily for AI engines, right? Like it's like a part of the site I almost don't want. It's on brand. I have some parameters. I'll spot check it, but it is not important for humans. I'm trying to train AI to look at my site and find the relevant content there and have that cross-linked and all of that. And it's the stuff that is created on an base 44, and it's also I put my own resources page just there, so anything I reference, like a lot of these are on there, and you can get to them directly. Base 44 are lovable. They're a little bit more like I call them like the what you see, what you get WYSIWYG version of these vibe coding tools. Um, and and so like yeah, like I kind of use agents in some ways, like deep research, or like kind of use them on other things. But that's one of those things. Yeah, it is part of Wix that I just like set forget. It happens a regular week. And there are some things like Base 44, for instance, has a new tool called Super Agents, and I've set one up that kind of like I'll talk to it about my portfolio on there, and it will and it can directly now connect to Google Search Console and do some of this work for me. Where, for instance, it runs now a weekly audit report across Google Search Console. I don't have to do that. It can make recommendations, and then I think there's that. In like I sent a link to the slides from Jeremiah Aoyang, and we can discuss that keynote as well. But Jeremiah talked a lot about agents and that like Web 4.0 and this idea of going from like those like big tasks that agents can do on their own to like doing on a recurring basis to then making decisions for me, right? Like guess what? Like I've been working in SEO for 22 years in like working at SEO agencies and dealing with all this. And I know so little about the day to day, right? Like I'm not an SEO practitioner. Like hell yeah, I trust Base 44 making some decisions on like what meta tags to use on my site, right? Like I don't want to make those decisions. Yeah.
Sure. Yep. Yeah. I mean, I think you hit on some great points there. I think these are agentic things you're doing. Like these are, and why are they agentic? So like deep research specifically, you align on a goal with deep research. If folks haven't used deep research, it's in basically every AI tool now. It's in your little chat button. You select deep research. You align on a goal and a plan. The AI goes to complete that plan. It reasons and course corrects as it collects more information and works along the way, and then produces the final output for you. So it's like the planning and reasoning ability, the fact that you don't need to be there to guide it throughout the entire process. That is like a total game changer. And you're already in that territory with what you were describing. You then started to talk about scheduling things.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's like another piece. I mean, generally speaking, when I'm talking about agents, I always use the adjective. It's like agentic, right?
Yeah.
And he's kind of on this continuum. But the most agent-like things are things that you don't have to tell them to go. They just like work alongside of you, and they sort of feel like a coworker, right? And so they take some of that initial stuff, like maybe the reasoning and the planning, the ability to land on a goal, and they also kind of keep working on it over time. So you mentioned scheduling stuff. That's the simplest way to bring your AI to life. And Claude has added some stuff recently. I actually haven't used it. I think ChatGPT has something too, where you can just schedule things on like a prompt or a certain, killer prompts runs at certain times of the day. That starts to feel agentic. It starts to feel like a coworker who's kind of part of your team who's contributing to tasks over time.
And even Gemini today, like I'm starting a new role, the contract role alongside everything I'm doing here with AMG. And I was asking Gemini about like all these benefits questions, and it's asking me like, do you want me to set up a reminder for when the benefits kick in for you to log into this portal and do these kinds of things? I'm like, hell yeah, like those little things go a very long way.
And in that case, is it connecting to your calendar or something to set those reminders? Like, have you set up a connection?
Um, I I don't think it's doing that directly, but I do
Okay.
have the oh, some of like the names of all their sub products. Like it's like Google personal information. What do they call the
Yeah.
personal connection?
Where it's like, yeah, where it's like pulling in all your Google information across the different accounts.
Yeah. So now I've just like Google can like run wild across
Sure.
all that stuff. And
Well, I ask because that the ability to use tools and not just read information from the outside world, but actually write and create documents and manipulate and change things. That's another one of your big flags for agentic,
oh
right?
man, that's like, yeah, when it like actually feels like it's helping you with your work
Actually doing
or
stuff,
yeah.
right? And many of your AI tools can do this in normal chat now. Like if you connect MCPs or connectors or apps, they're going to get all sorts of different names. But there's different ways you can connect, and some of them just take a few clicks of the mouse, right? You can connect your AI tools to these external connections where they can actually do things and not just read information. As soon as you start experiencing that, again, it's like another key step towards agentic.
Well, and one of the just odd tips I'll throw out is if you're not sure, and if this conversation right now is sparking some ideas for someone here, go ask. It doesn't matter if you're using ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Perplexity, whatever it is. Just ask it. Hey, can you connect to Google Calendar? Can you connect to Dropbox? Can you like do this? And you might be surprised. Like even things like Google Search Console, I didn't expect base 44 to have like read write access to that, right? And like this can change my work in a significant way for some of my own consultant, right? Like so just even if it doesn't suggest it itself, um can you connect to Stripe so it can update some of your like payment things if you're charging for like webinars or ebooks or something on your website? Like just ask it.
What
And
would you
then,
do with Google Search Console?
well, now I get I get updates every week of like, oh, like this there's indexing issues, do this, do that. And now I'd rather just have AI scan Google Search Console for these errors. If there's anything that it can fix on its own, fix it. And then if there's anything I need to know about, like, oh, I need to change X, Y, and Z in GoDaddy because I don't have a canonical URL, whatever, like any of this stuff, or I need to go and change it on some other property, then just tell me like I'm 10 years old. Like, here are the 3 steps to do it. But increasingly, yeah, as it can do these things itself and update settings on some of your backend and like, I mean, and I'm seeing all these things that I'm not even using much, like connecting to HubSpot and Salesforce and all of these things. I mean, it is, and then it's like if you get, if something changes in one record in this Google sheet, I mean, I personally think some companies like Zapier are going to be less relevant because this is all just being done through these other MCPs.
No, that's a good point.
I actually do want to pick up on a point Daniel made because I'm curious, Tom and Dev, if you want to chime in too. But he's saying in the chat like MCPs are already dying because we're moving to APIs. Like, do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, I do. I mean, so to tie back to Marketecture too, I think Terry made a point when he was talking about his AI predictions. He was saying like we will be aligning on standards as an advertising industry. So MCP, right, kind of being like the AI standard for how AI should talk to each other. Then there's all these ad-oriented standards like AdCP and what is IAB's AARF or something like that, AMP, right? The AMP one that they just announced. So it's like, do we need these standards for how AIs can talk to each other? It certainly seems like a good idea. And I've definitely done trainings where I've like explained to people what MCPs are and how they might use them, and people's eyes light up a little bit and say, hey, that's a great idea. But when you talk to technical people or developers about these things, they actually think they're kind of silly. At least some that I've spoken to feel this way. AI tools, LLMs, are really, really good at making sense of any sort of text that you throw at them. So like the idea that you need to include very specific fields and parameters to make like a successful hookup between 2 AIs is a little flawed in the first place because they're like absolutely amazing at reading blobs of text formatted a bajillion different ways, right? So it's like, well, so what are you getting then if you adhere to these standards? Well, one thing you get is a bunch of more tokens than you actually need. So, right, the language that the AIs talk is they're sending tokens back and forth. And if you are using MCP, for example, there might be extraneous information in an MCP call that you don't necessarily need for your tool to work. And if you're going to do this at tremendous scale, or you're building an application, that might actually be more expensive than if you just do some kind of direct API connection or custom coding or some different style of handshake between your AIs. So the more I've talked to developers about MCPs and other standards, the more I'm softening a little bit on them. I think Carrie might not have been right about this, that they'll consolidate. I think it's possible that you end up with just kind of a mess of these, and it doesn't really matter because as long as we're sending the pertinent information for a transaction to get done, the AI can kind of figure out the details.
Don't tools have less token usage than MCP?
Well, tools is sort of a abstract definition. Tools is like anytime an AI is going to use something to do something, and MCP is one language that you can use to execute the handshake in order to do a tool.
Fair point.
Right. But because MCP is a framework, there's things that must be included every time, and they don't always need to be included. They're just not always relevant to every handshake between the two AIs. So
yeah, I guess to add to this too, like we've sort of replaced MCPs with skills, and skills have this function in most models where you give it a description and then the model knows when to call the skill. So you can load a lot of skills into a context because it doesn't really stuff it the same way that an MCP would. So like when you use an MCP, it adds all of these instructions to the prompts that you're sending, which really kills context window management. But with skills, it's almost like you give it a short description of what the skill can be used for, and the model will call the skill, which might be subagents and scripts and all kinds of things. And sometimes that includes MCP servers. But it's almost like if you had labels in your toolbox that told you, you need a screwdriver when you have flathead screws. And if you don't have flathead screws, you don't need a screwdriver.
yeah, I love that. And I think skills, let me know if you agree, Daniel, is starting to become like more of a universal concept that AI practitioners, I feel like, all need to understand, like how to layer skills in like AI conversation, which skills your AI has access to. MCPs is more like a detail, I would say, that once represented like the flow of information, but now just calling it skills, I think is cleaner. To your point, they're kind of slightly different concepts anyways. But like MCP is a little bit of sausage making, I would say, for most practitioners.
And this to me sounds like a big net positive where where the more we're able to move away from the acronyms and jargon, and the more it's like, okay, what are we trying to do? Oh, we're trying to update HubSpot when new information comes in, and right, like, and just automate this, and trying to optimize ad yield or something, like all this stuff. And okay, like, because like adding more acronyms is the last thing that marketers want, right?
Yeah, totally. And like a year ago, I was trying to coordinate an MCP server by like setting it up locally on my desktop, and it was like semi-technical. Now, any AI platform in the bottom left corner, you click your settings, you click connections, and there's going to be some version of this. It's either like can read your Google Drive or can maybe control your Asana project management board. Like there's different flavors, and they get richer depending on the connection, but it's becoming much, much simpler to set this stuff up.
Yeah, it's tremendous.
Speaking of, Jeff Green mentioned during the Trade Desk speech that there is a Trade Desk MCP server. That was a cool little leak that had not come out before.
And so can you explain what this then means for Trade Desk customers and others?
Yeah, for sure. And I've actually done this myself in Manus. Do you want me to show people what this kind of looks like on my? Maybe I'll try and pull this up as I'm talking, if I can. Do this.
Yeah, go for it. We love showing.
So the idea is like using a UI can be cumbersome, right? Using the Trade Desk, while it is supposedly a very trader-friendly piece of technology, there's just all sorts of stuff you might want to do that could be better if done programmatically. And not having to rely on your mouse clicking around. And one way to do that could be telling your AI to do those things and allowing the AI to do that stuff programmatically. So the idea with the Trade Desk MCP is that there are people who are not logging into the Trade Desk. They are
You're not sharing.
Sorry, I've said enough as I'm talking. There are people who are not logging into the trade desk, but rather are communicating with it programmatically via a AI chat tool. And this is something you could set up yourself for your Facebook ads account. So this tool I'm gonna hop in is called Manus, Manus. Really cool agent tool. Got bought by Meta, I think like 6 months or so ago. And if I start a fresh conversation, it would just look like a normal chat. And then once I kick things off, it like opens this computer over here, which I'll show you in a minute. But this is kind
Hey,
of
Tom,
yeah.
I'm so sorry to cut you off. When does one use Manus as an agent tool versus just going and spinning up native tools oneself, native agents?
Like using a developer when you say native agents? What do you mean?
Yeah, or just setting up your own. I mean, is the idea that if we're not a developer, setting up and running an agent and having it just persist and always be there, similar to a cron job, is just like I was just trying to get a sense from you. Clearly have a lot of experience here. Is Manus a substitute for anything, or this is you got to do something like this to get agents going?
Manus definitely was unique a year ago. It was like very different experience than ChatGPT. You talk to a ChatGPT or Claude, it gives you a response. You talk to it, it gives you a response.
Yeah.
Manus aligns on a plan, pulls up a computer, uses the computer to execute tasks on your behalf, uses tools, and then gives you a response. So it felt like night and day when it was released a year ago. Now, like we were kind of just talking about, tools like Claude might do some of those things on the fly as you're chatting with them, depending on what mode you're using and how you've set things up. So it's kind of a little less black and white of the answer I'll give you, but I use Manus when I need to control a computer, manipulate lots of documents, complete a complex multi-step task, something that might take like 20 minutes or a half hour, rather than something that's more conversational. So the ask here was, I said, hey, I got this old Facebook Meta ads account, hasn't been optimized forever. Can you do an audit of it, basically? And I have a prompting framework here. That's why it's broken into all these different letters that we teach. And it says, yeah, for sure, I'll do this audit for you. I had already connected my Meta ads account. So you see this connected apps button. So you see this Meta ads manager right here. I had logged in. You can log into whatever sort of apps you want to connect to your Manus account. And again, in like every AI chat form now, you have this connections or apps or whatever they call it, but you always click on the bottom left and see what you can hook your AI up to. So I hooked mine up to my Meta ads manager, said, hey, okay, sounds good. It pulls up a computer. And then sometimes Manus will navigate the web in a web browser. In this case, it had a programmatic connection to Meta. And so it just started running code and making API calls to Meta to get information. So it's not very interesting to look at, but this is basically like a coder calling Meta over and over again, assembling this information. Eventually they put together, it starts to look like a structured report, starts to type out text, and then creates this final document. Let's look at maybe this. Yeah, this looks good. Cool. So then it makes this document that is a complete audit of my account. So it puts together like, there's 2 separate ad accounts within my account. There's 8 historical campaigns. The data is all really old. The advertisers were a band I used to play in at a restaurant that I used to do work with. And it lists out the objectives for all my campaigns, and then makes best practices recommendations, like what does it observe? It basically makes fun of me for being super outdated. Analysis of the legacy account structure reveals several areas where practices deviate significantly from Meta ads best practices, and it suggests all these things I can do to modernize my campaign. So Agentic, because I gave it a high-level task, it went and completed the task on my behalf. It probably made some mistakes, like it probably pulled some information back that wasn't right, or like looked funny or something like that. Course corrects, put it all into one place, review it, just kind of sign, seal, and deliver. So a much more complete product than working with chat. It also is harder to verify the work. So like here I have 6 pages that it produced for me in a few minutes. Double checking this is a little harder than if it was turn-based and I could kind of look at every single piece. So we kind of need new validation techniques as we do agent work, and we're constantly recommending people insert themselves at the right moments in time to make sure this stuff is headed in the right direction. Any questions on this?
So when you're running a live campaign, it's also going to make recommendations on how to improve it, I guess.
It could. I mean, when you're running a live campaign with Meta, for example, it's already optimizing itself. Like they've been using machine learning to tighten up the performance of Meta ad campaigns for a long time on the micro level, right? Like constantly looking for new users and things like that. Then there's moments in time where you might want to do a strategy shift, right? Or you might want to like think hard about your reporting to date and decide if you want to update your strategy moving forward. That to me is more when you would bring out an agent and talk through it and, ask it to audit your account, do reporting, things like that.
What about your landing pages? Can it analyze your landing pages and videos?
Can it watch your videos? I'm not certain if Manus can watch your videos or not, but that seems likely to be something that they are trying to add. Yeah, go check out my navigate to my landing page and audit it. Yeah, that's a perfect one for it. And it'll literally pull up a computer, navigate to your website to start clicking around, doing stuff, taking screenshots if you want. So we do another demo. It's a competitive research. Go to the Meta Ads Manager, which is a place you can get public Meta ads that are being ran, and it takes screenshots of them and does competitive research for brands in your competitive set.
And then maybe analyze if your ads and your landing page are appropriate or...
Yeah, for sure. But like, as you're saying that, there's probably a bunch of people on this call who are really good at that sort of analysis. So like, I'd encourage you to get help from AI with that sort of thing, but like lean in yourself, providing lots of context about really what you're trying to do with the website, your business objectives, all that sort of stuff is what's going to be the difference between getting generic website improvement recommendations and actually getting something that's powerful for your business. Looks like a question from Earl.
Yeah, it's just looking at defining AI users' adoption levels.
I think they probably are 4, actually. You missed the category 0, though. That's people who don't actually use AI. They might be people who talk about AI, but there are lots of people who don't use that. Even at like a Marketecture conference, if you really pressure test how people are using AI, you might find that many have messed with it, but very few are getting returned regularly. So I'd say there's kind of a bucket of 0 users. There's been a huge amount of people who've messed around. Some of them have had like some successes, some failures. When people say, hey, to use AI, they say, yeah, I have ChatGPT, and maybe there's a couple things that they get returned from. I think we've already covered 2/3 of general knowledge workers at that point. And my opinion is probably, I'm a little more conservative than many on how I think AI adoption is rolled out. I think there's tons of opportunity for folks to ramp up. So I'd say about 2/3 of people are really not getting much return from AI. Then there's maybe like, of that remaining third, a subset of like true power users. Many of them are developers. Maybe the vast majority of them are like extremely technical developer type stuff, using it for software engineering, vibe coding, things like that. And then there's this like spot of 15% of knowledge workers who are using the tools that the vibe coders are using, but to do knowledge work. And that's people who are doing things like CoWork, Manus, Agentic Claude. So I see it as there's really like 4 buckets. I would encourage folks to try and get in that bucket I was just describing as fast as possible. Maybe many folks on this call are already in that bucket. But some things that get you in that bucket are definitely actual return on your AI usage. So when you hear about, yeah, go ahead.
Well, because this is one of the first things I want to ask you before we went down the agent rabbit hole here. It's like when you're talking about returns, like I'm still seeing so much about it's like return on time, right? And like some of these productivity metrics. But that to me still strikes me as like a field in its adolescence at best, because like, how do you go to the CFO or the CMO or the CEO and say like, I got this return on time, right? Like I saved 4 hours per week using AI, and it's like, okay, but what is that really doing for us? You know?
Yeah.
So what are you seeing with like what returns even mean, and where is it worth even trying to get like a hard ROI metric versus like are softer metrics okay? What's your point of view?
I do think time savings is a great thing to target. And that is when I see people's eyes light up. It's like, oh, that used to take us so long. Now I can do this so much faster. That's great. But to your point, that's only going to be exciting for so long, right? Like your customers are not going to be very excited that you save time doing their work, right? Neither are your managers. They want to see more value. So like the second thing you do, like once you are actually seeing concrete return and you're seeing productivity gains and efficiency, you need to turn that into value. And the simplest way to do that is just produce more useful stuff. Like do more of what you were doing before, maybe do it more regularly. Like if it's reporting, maybe you're the customer's hearing from you more often. And maybe you're just doing it faster. Like in my business where we have to create live work sessions, if someone wants a custom session this Friday, I can do it, but I couldn't do that 2 years ago. But now I have the right tools in place. I have the right operating procedure in place. I mean, I could do this afternoon. If somebody really needs a custom session, is we have the right operating procedure in place to do that. So the way we're trying to express it to our customers is faster turnaround, more customization, and then we're actually trying to slowly lower our pricing too, which I think other folks will see start to feel pricing pressure. It's like, if I can do this for cheaper and faster, why wouldn't I? And our hope is that customers will buy more in total as a result of lowering our pricing. So I think you're totally right. This first order effect that you feel isn't that exciting. It's all the kind of second order effects you got to jump into.
I was gonna say, don't you see like improvements in where an ROI is doing things they couldn't do before? I mean, people who are not doing things that now AI enables them to do. So it's adding new capabilities.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great point. The product that many people who are producing with their newfound skills isn't necessarily as good as the old product. Like if I can vibe code somebody a website, how much better is that than what they would have gotten from a developer who could also vibe code, for example, right? So like my newfound ability that creates efficiency for me doesn't make me like the right domain expert necessarily to own that task over a longer time period.
I was saying for the end client though, like the end client thing now has the ability to do a website where they wouldn't have paid someone before. Like the tool opens up new opportunity for them to do things that they would not have been able to do for themselves.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yes.
I mean, what's the extent to which you're seeing that happen as opposed to just the argument of you're going to save time? I mean, maybe it's not an argument for you selling the services, but from the perspective of business adoption of AI, of you're adding, new capabilities,
More value. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a great focus point. Like in my business again, where we create, historically we've created a lot of trainings. Like people want PowerPoint presentations for us. In the AI enabled era, you now get a lot more from us. You get one sheeters, you get glossaries, you get all more material, you get a custom microsite internally. So yeah, I think you're right, Howard. Like more, I called it more stuff, but it's not just like quantity. It's potentially more unique pieces of value that you're bringing to customers too. So I think you're right.
And Tom, I asked a question in the chat for those of us who are in that 15% that we're talking about, and I'm working hard to get to the top of that. What do you suggest? Is it your courses? Are there other places to go to get this kind of education? I'm teaching myself to build agents and learning a little bit of Python in the way, but I'm thinking I may not need that. But I am actively looking to get really, really good at the knowledge work part of this. I'm not interested in being a coder, but I am absolutely interested. I think this is going to be the ability to take AI and translate business processes into AI workflows is going to be incredibly valuable in the next 5-10 years.
Yeah, well said. I think you're at the bleeding edge. If you want to get in that last group, so like associating with other people in that group and sharing notes with them directly in real time as you're building stuff and figuring it out, I think is a good place to be. If you really want to be a power user and kind of pushing the limit at your org, you got to be using different tools and just wrapping your head around how one adds value versus another. And you might not be a power user in every single tool, but you're like wrapping your head around the difference between a CoWork and a Manus and a ChatGPT and kind of understanding that.
Yeah.
There's also way more operational work to be done for deploying AI and getting value out of AI than I even realized at first. And by that, I mean, like with my business, as we wanted to use AI more directly, like thinking really hard about where we store information, what information we write down, obsessing over recording every single phone call, like picking one shared Teams AI platform and using that and creating artifacts in that we can share and pass back and forth with each other. Like that was actually a little more work than I thought. Or like people have mentioned OpenClaw. OpenClaw is like a really cool agentic tool. It's kind of like a live, like a teammate. It's proactive. It can do stuff. But it's actually really hard to use. And like thinking about how an org is going to use OpenClaw and Claude CoWork side by side is a problem that many people don't have a clean answer to, and like trying to figure that adoption, figure out that next phase of adoption, I think is going to keep you really sharp and give you a lot of useful perspective.
What about your courses?
So our courses that we give the businesses are
Shameless plug. I'll take my $50 later.
I appreciate it. Thank you. So we usually show up and we do a few sessions worth of fundamentals, because nearly every business in the world right now has lots of people who need to know how to prompt, need to know what tools are, need to know how to store and share prompts and projects and all sorts of kind of the basics. So we usually do a couple of those. Many businesses, especially larger businesses, have champions programs where there's like some amount of people who they really want to push to the next level and want to be driving use cases. So we'll do parallel curriculum with them that's more focused on use cases and deploying the AI than knowing and learning the fundamentals. And then we do these office hours sessions where people bring their actual business problems, and like a small group will come to us, 3 people from the engineering team or 2 people from product marketing, and say, hey, we're trying to do this thing, or we're trying to operationalize this, help unblock us, and help bring it to the next level. Yep. And that's typically what the more power users are more interested in. Like, I don't necessarily have a 90-minute lecture that is going to help a power user get to the next level, but like rolling up our sleeves together and looking at their business problems, looking at the actual tools they're using, that's usually when a lot of the goodness comes to life.
Yeah, it's very clear here that theory and application are very different, and where you need to be learning stuff is in the application part.
Yes, I think so, big time. I think that's totally right.
Yeah. I had a question about that. Putting it to use. There's folks here in the Boston area, like the Kendall Project, where they're basically trying to do some context engineering at a departmental level. And like, every business process has a problem, a way of describing it, the people involved, and they try and do that. Are you seeing a need in the organizations you're talking to, which is, thanks for the AI literacy. Thanks for also helping us think through how to deploy it in general. And yes, we'd love your office hours, but what we really would like to have is at least some, if not all, of the departments in the company have a consistent way of capturing processes, or like as context blocks, so that when we try and feed into whatever agent or chat interactive experience we're going to use, we all have a similar taxonomy. Is that a clear question?
Yeah, I think it's a great point. Many organizations I work with are already deploying some strategy to clean up how they document and record things, because they've had this realization already. Like, we plugged in Microsoft Copilot to our SharePoint and we realized everything was a mess. Like, that is a very common
Shocking
anecdote, right? Yeah, you'll hear that from lots of businesses. So many of them are already thinking to do something about it. Others that aren't, I'm ushering them along, I'm pushing them along. But there's a lot of change in behavior. Like, one simple thing is record all of your phone calls and put them in one place so that people can harness them with AI and ask information about calls that you've had in the past. Like, that is one best practice that many orgs are not doing, right? Maybe they're recording them, but are they putting them in one place? Are they making those accessible via AI? So yeah, there's a set of those things, a set of best practices for kind of getting your knowledge in order. And there's major change in behavior related to that. Like, we advise businesses to keep SOP documents, standard operating procedure documents, where you just write down how you do stuff. Most people don't do that. Most businesses don't have that. So to answer your question, yes, a lot of times that might already be in place, and we're kind of helping with that. Or when we're doing leadership consulting, we're like guiding them on how to approach that.
Just tell me quickly, like what's your quick takeaways from the event, and what would you want people to walk away with?
The ad world has been using machine learning and AI to make campaigns better for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Even as people think about like AdCP and using MCPs for advertising, they're more about they're not about real time modifying the campaign, right? It's like about speeding up the negotiation process, the strategy and planning process. When you hear about how agencies and publishers too are using AI, a lot of it is about efficiency and like time savings and things like that. So I think in the marketing world, thinking through the operational changes from AI is like the stage we're on right now. Like, consumers are getting extremely targeted, personalized ads powered by machine learning that have been for a long time. how we do that work, how we set that up, how often we manage it, like the intensity with which we do our check-ins and our analyses and our strategy recalibration, that is more what's about to change.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe thinking a little bit inwardly was kind of a theme that I got from the conference.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Well, Tom, this is awesome. What's the best way for folks to get in touch with you?
People can drop me a line directly. I mean, I'm pretty accessible. I'm going to put my phone number in there too. Shoot me a text if you want to chat AI. This is what I do. I like
not
to
to be your agent.
AI. So drop me a chat all day. I'm kind of sharing notes with people, best practices, things like that. So if I don't get back to you right away, don't hold it against me. But I'm available.
We'll hold it against your agent for not answering the text.
Yes, there you go.
Awesome. Well, Tom, this is amazing. I'll stay on for anything else we want to discuss till the end of the hour. But thank you so much for joining us, and hope you can come back sometime.